Welcome back to Off Centre. Today we're going to be going through one of the biggest stories of the last month, which is the Alaa Abd El-Fattah case. And it is horrendous. And it's a story that should highlight to all of us just how much contempt the Uniparty have for us. Kier Starmer welcomed in Alaa Abd El-Fattah, who had called for a genocide against white people and violence against Jews, and was handed citizenship in 2021 by the Conservative government. And apparently, no British official was aware of his horrendous history of social media posts, and no one was aware of his views against white people or Jews. Do you really believe that? And what's the full story? Let's get into it now. So this story starts in around 2010, when an Egyptian activist by the name of Alaa Abd El-Fattah is being regularly imprisoned under different charges by the Egyptian state. And some of these charges are arguably kind of reasonable, and an awful lot of them are not. They would not be considered acceptable charge in a Western country, but in an Egyptian dictatorship, which is where this man was, under President El-Sisi, these charges were considered legitimate. Now, one of these charges, the one that the Brits, we in particular, took a disliking to, was a charge of spreading so-called false information, or fake news. And this charge landed him in prison, in an unfair detention, certainly, in 2019. Now, Mr. Abd El-Fattah discovers in 2021, through his lawyer, that potentially he is eligible for British citizenship. You know, the meaningless bit of paper that the Conservatives handed out like confetti throughout the 14 years they were in office? Yeah, that one. And he discovers, with his lawyer, that there is a loophole he can use. Now, Alaa Abd El-Fattah's mother spent some of her very young years in London. She was born in Great Britain. And he realises that, hold on, under a loophole that the Conservative government basically established, or at least allowed to be utilised during their term of office, I can apply for citizenship. I can become a British citizen. And guess what? This man, who is in prison for his social media posts in the Egyptian prison system, gets his citizenship. The Conservatives look through to see who this man is, and they don't bother to check the social media posts for which he is imprisoned on his public Twitter account. Now, to put this into context, when Alaa Abd El-Fattah arrived in Great Britain on Boxing Day 2025, it took all of about 24 hours, maybe even less, for hundreds of amateur journalists and Twitter users, especially those working at GB News, to discover this man had said some of the most outrageous things imaginable. Alaa Abd El-Fattah has called for the genocide and mass murder of whites. He's called for the death of Jews and Zionists. He says he wants all colonists killed, which we all know what that's a cryptic term for. That means white people. And he has now been welcomed into Europe by Kier Starmer. Kier Starmer said that he was thrilled. He was overjoyed that this man had arrived back in the United Kingdom. This man who called for the death of Jews and the genocide of whites is now arriving in a majority white country. And that is supposed to improve safety, is it? Is that supposed to help Jews? Is that supposed to help the safety of white people in Great Britain? Is that supposed to help anyone? No, that's not going to help anyone. In fact, that's an inordinately dangerous decision for a government to take. Kier Starmer and the Conservative government, in this instance, have effectively colluded, whether through ignorance or malice, to bring in a man from Egypt with no cultural ties or really family ties to Great Britain whatsoever, frankly. He's never stepped foot in Great Britain, he's not familiar with British heritage or traditions or culture, and they've allowed this man into the United Kingdom. And it's not as though he's merely apathetic towards Britain, he is calling for violence against Britain, against whites, against Jews. He is calling for the literal murder of more than 80% of the British population, and Kier Starmer refuses to deport him. Ask yourself, why is that? Kier Starmer invites this man to the United Kingdom, he celebrates him, and then his social media posts come to light. They come to the forefront of public discourse. No Home Office official apparently found these social media posts. Apparently, no one in the Home Office assigned to this case, no one in the civil service ever discovered a single outrageous social media post. And it took a half a dozen amateur journalists 12 hours to find them, at most. And Kier Starmer, these posts come to his attention. And what does he do? He does absolutely nothing. He calls them abhorrent and says, we still won't deport this man because apparently those posts don't reach the bar for deportation. This is either a clear campaign of active malice against the British people to undermine their safety, or it's ignorance and incompetence that's indiscernible from contempt. Either way, Kier Starmer must go. His position has become untenable. Now, we've looked into the timeline and the process of how this happened. How the Conservatives were handing out citizenship like confetti, how Kier Starmer welcomed this man into the United Kingdom for no apparent reason, and how we celebrated at his arrival. But what we haven't looked at is how would this Egyptian radical Islamist extremist be treated were he a white British mother? We all know that there is a two-tier justice system in this country. We all know that this country's justice system is completely broken. We know that there are an awful lot of corrupt judges out there who give greater sentences for social media posts than rape. I'm not making it up, it's real. You can go and find instances of that happening. But Lucy Connolly was arrested within a couple of days. She was in court within a week, and she was in prison within a month. Alaa Abd El-Fattah has tweeted things that are dramatically more violent than anything that Lucy Connolly ever said. We all know that Lucy Connolly's post was wrong. We know that she shouldn't have said those things. But Alaa Abd El-Fattah is on a whole nother level of violence, of pure wickedness and evil. Calling for a genocide against all English people? Saying he wants to massacre South Africans? Saying he wants to kill so-called colonists? We all know that that's just slang for white people in his language. So, why does Kier Starmer feel that this man should stay here? Why aren't the police taking action? Why hasn't his citizenship been revoked? He's clearly a danger to British people. He's clearly a danger to white people. And Jews. He is clearly a risk to the safety of everyone in Britain, for that matter. He has overtly called for violence against whites, but someone who's that deranged is probably willing to commit an act of violence against anyone. So why is someone this extreme, someone this dangerous, someone this violent been permitted to reside in Great Britain? And how is it possible that a small band of independent journalists, as well as some GB News correspondents, were able to dig up these tweets from 10 years ago? But no government or civil service or Home Office official was able to find them in the 3 odd years that they were negotiating with the Egyptian government. The reason this man was in prison was because of his social media posts, and the government didn't think to check his X account, they didn't think to check his Twitter. The government is either so incompetent that it's indiscernible from malice, or they have a genuine agenda against the safety of the British people. Either way, Kier Starmer's office and his position has become completely untenable. The Labour Party and the Conservatives have betrayed Britain over and over and over again. They've left our borders wide open, no one has stopped the boats, illegal migrants are still flooding into the country, and now, to top it all off, the icing on the cake, a man who has actively called for the genocide of whites and Jews has been allowed into Great Britain. And not only was he permitted to stay here, he has been celebrated by Kier Starmer. Kier Starmer has said that this man is still welcome in Great Britain. It can genuinely make you sick. It's one of those stories you look at and you think, hold on, my government has a genuine agenda against you, against me, against you, against this country, against your culture and your traditions. This man called for a genocide against the English. This man hates everything England stands for. He hates our cultures. He hates our traditions. He hates the values that we have. He hates our history. He hates our past. He hates everything about Great Britain. And Kier Starmer thinks that it's a perfectly sensible decision to keep him here. It is disgusting. This man should be stripped of his citizenship. Then he should be deported, and then Kier Starmer should resign, and an immediate general election should be called, in which both Kier Starmer must be completely ousted, the Labour Party must be decimated, along with the Conservatives. These parties deserve no seats. They are actively betraying the British people when they do things like these. And the British people should not be expected to support this government. They should not be expected to vote for them. They should not be expected to stand by them. If we end up going to war, then we should not be expected to serve. This government has an active agenda against the British people. And it's things like this, as appalling as they are, that show this government really as what it is. It is an active bureaucracy that is intended to make Britain less safe. Either through incompetence or genuine malice, they are putting the British people in danger, and Kier Starmer must resign.